Don't listen to your parents when it comes to getting career advice. When I was a houseman, I used to work 34-hour shifts. A lot of bullying. The wages for doctors in Malaysia have not changed since I started working. The amount of money you make as a touring comic is significant. I want to do this as long as I can, but I hope to reach a certain point where Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Mr. Money TV, and today we have a special guest. He is none other than Dr. Jason Leong. We just did one podcast.
Yep.
With Ong Kian Ming.
So how does it feel? Because I understand you listen to the podcast quite regularly.
Yes.
And suddenly now you're going on that show, right? How does it feel?
It's like having a conversation with a friend and a professor.
We'll be listening back to that episode.
I always watch myself and I listen to myself. That is one of my character flaws. I love to watch myself. It's narcissism.
Today in this particular section, we're going to ask you a little bit about from doctors all the way going until life and everything else, right?
Okay.
So are you ready?
Ready?
When did you discover that you're funny?
So when I was in school, even in primary school, I realized that I was always the class clown. I was just always making fun of, making jokes. And then when the internet came about, I was always searching for jokes. And then I found this category called Little Johnny jokes, which are just jokes but perverted jokes, you know. For example, like the joke is Little Johnny would go to class and then he would write the word penis on the blackboard. The teacher come, who wrote this? No one will answer. Then she rub it off. Then the next day she come back to class. The word penis is half the blackboard. Who wrote this? Nobody answer. Then she rub it off. And then the next day she come back. Penis is on the whole blackboard. So who wrote this? And then finally Little Johnny says, it's me. And then she goes like, why does it get bigger? And Little Johnny goes, it gets bigger when you rub it. And so those are the kind of jokes I found on the internet, and I told those jokes to my friends in school. And I realized that I like it when they laugh, you know. So when I discovered stand-up comedy, it's like a natural extension of my interests and my strengths.
Did you started practicing stand-up comedy before becoming a doctor or about the same time?
About the same time. So I was 1 year into my housemanship. I discovered Kuala Lumpur had a monthly open mic stand-up comedy show. I joined the show. I did my first set in June 2010. I loved it and I never looked back since. And it was in 2011 that I got regular gigs and regular bookings. And then in 2014, I quit medicine to pursue stand-up comedy full-time.
I understand that you became a doctor during that time, right?
Yeah.
And were your parents disappointed that in the end you chose to be a full-time comedian?
I wouldn't say disappointed. Definitely they were concerned. But the first year when I quit, I didn't tell them.
You didn't tell them?
I just said, I'm on a long leave. I'm on a sabbatical. I'm on unpaid leave. And then the 3 months became 6 months, became 9 months. And then my mother called on and said, Jason, you're not going back to medicine, right? I said, no, I'm not going back to medicine. So I just did comedy full time. And once they realized that I was happier and, you know, I could sustain myself, they were okay lah.
Wow. So your parents were just fine with it?
I mean, they had no choice.
They had no choice.
You know what I mean? So like, and then my mom sort of became like my agent. She's like, hey, Auntie Susan has a company. She's very rich and she wants you to perform at this dinner. Make sure you charge her high. She became like my de facto manager. Yeah.
I see. So share me a little bit. How was it like growing up that shape the Jason Leong that we see today?
When I was 6, 7 years old, my mom encouraged the habit of reading. So she'd go to the local second-hand bookstore and then she'll buy this or rent these books for me to read. I read books like Annie Blyton, The Bookworm Gang from Singapore. All these books, she subscribed to Reader's Digest every month. From that love for reading, you know, I developed the grasp of the English language, which helped me become a stand-up comedian that I am now. So I think I would say the most important thing was the inculcation or my mom instilling the habit of reading.
So actually for my family, reading wasn't part of the thing. My mom did force me to read. And actually English is my second language.
Oh, yeah.
So actually my first language is actually Mandarin.
Very good.
Yeah. So until today, right, I still find it when I kanchong a bit, right, I'll fumble.
So you think in Mandarin, right, I presume?
Nowadays I think in English, but it won't be exactly the correct words. So you notice that it takes a while for me to warm up.
I see.
Yeah, so after the warm up, then I'll get better. Yeah, but if not, then I'll get stuck a little bit. Yeah.
I have a friend in Hong Kong who speaks English and Cantonese. Cantonese is his first language actually. So he thinks in English, but he counts in Cantonese.
I count in Mandarin.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
So there's all these kind of little bit of stuff, and then when you get angry, then your thoughts come in the form of Mandarin words.
I see.
Yeah, when you get angry, I'll think in Mandarin suddenly. But when I think about work, then I think in English suddenly.
Right, okay. I don't speak Mandarin at all. I'm very bad at it, but my Bahasa Malaysia is very good because I grew up amongst Malay kids, and then when I go to school, I was surrounded by Malay kids also. So at one point, they said that I spoke Malay like a Malay person. Yeah, but over the years, it's fallen into disuse, of course. But I do love the language.
I've been to your comedy shows, right? And every time when you talk about your career as a doctor, you say you literally give up hope on being a doctor.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And sometimes I wonder, sitting down there as an audience, although I laughed a lot during that time, but sometimes deep down in my heart, I really wonder, what's the real cause of you living the medical scene? Is it really part of it? You just don't care anymore?
Well, there was obviously the pull factor, which is stand-up comedy. That was the biggest pull factor.
But finding a passion, that's something you love, right? Yeah.
But there were a lot of push factors also. Like number one, the long hours. You know, in government service, when I was a houseman, I used to work like 34-hour shifts, 6 to 8 times a month. If you're on call on a Monday, you start work at 7 a.m. until 5 p.m. Then your colleagues go home. You stay on until the next morning, 7 a.m. Then you continue from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. So you're on call Monday means you go back home on Tuesday evening. And it was very taxing, you know. And some of the medical officers or even specialists still today work that kind of shifts in Malaysia. So long hours, a lot of bullying, you know, because you're the most junior, they'll make you do the most work, and sometimes they're not very nice about it. And then the bureaucracy, you know, which has gotten worse, you know, there's no transparent career pathways to become a specialist, especially for most of the specialties in Malaysia. Or if you want to specialize, you have to go to the master's program, and that's very opaque as well. Special quotas, and then of course like the wages. You know, I would say it's not the most important push factor, but it is a push factor nonetheless. Where doctors in Malaysia, public service, are paid very badly, very badly. And the sad thing is, the wages for doctors in Malaysia have not changed since I started working as a doctor. That was 15 years ago.
Wow.
I started work in 2009. Those wages in 2009 have not changed 1 cent in the year 2024. In fact, it's gotten less because you don't have on-call allowances, or certain departments don't have on-call allowances anymore. So it's gotten worse. So it's a tough thing being a doctor in public service in Malaysia.
Well, recently, PMX did increase the pay, but that's about like long overdue, and only 15% if I can recall.
I believe the increase in pay is general for all civil servants.
For all civil servants.
The last time there was a significant increase in pay for doctors was when Chua Soilek was the health minister. I believe he increased it in the year 2008 or 7. I'm not sure. I can't remember the quantum, but that was the last significant increase. And since then, there has not been a significant increase for doctors' pay in Malaysia. PMX's one is a general increase for all civil servants. Yeah.
So now, before I go into the topic about money and doctors, right? I want to ask you one thing, right? Every time I hear people say, right, doctors are 36 hours on call, right?
Yes.
Who created that stupid structure, actually? Because it doesn't make sense to me, right?
Yes.
Doctors are the ones who will tell us that, hey, you need rest, bro. If not, you're going to die, right? And then they go and create a 36-hour on call for doctors themselves,
sleep
right?
is important.
Yeah. So
I won't say the genesis of that shift is stupid. It started because out of necessity. You must understand, long before my time when I started as a doctor, before that, Malaysia had a chronic shortage of doctors, the whole of Malaysia. So you needed to be on call 36 hours because there were simply not enough doctors to cover the shifts in the government setting. When I started as a houseman, there were already enough doctors to not have the 36-hour on-call system. They still persisted with that system because it's a chronic toxic thing where the doctors who survive the 36-hour on-call shifts, they were like, oh, I survived the trauma, so now you also must survive the trauma, right? If I could do it, how come you cannot do it?
Right.
It's a toxic bullying mindset. I suffered, so therefore you must suffer also.
Right.
And they cannot tahan if they suffered, then the new batch don't suffer. It's a cycle lah. It's a vicious cycle, you know. But luckily now, yes, I believe house officers do the shift system, which is better, of course, you know. But still, they don't get the on-call allowance. They get paid less. So there's a lot of reforms that are needed in the healthcare system in Malaysia. Yeah, but they're not. I don't think that they're forthcoming in the future, like, because now they have contract doctors, you know. So there's a glut of house officers at the house officer level.
Yep.
But there are not enough like medical officers
To
or
train
specialists,
them.
because the medical officers and specialists, they are leaving because they can't take the stress anymore. So there's problems at the bottom, problems at the top. Yeah.
Now, let's go into the subject of pay, right? Recently, I came out with a video with another doctor. He was talking about doctors' pay hitting from 100 over thousand all the way until 600,000.
That video made me regret leaving medicine. That's how good that video was. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
go on.
What are your thoughts about it? Because we get two kind of comments generally, right? There's a group of people who say that, great, doctors deserve to earn so much. And there's the other group of people who actually say that, hey, doctor is supposed to be a noble pursuit, right? Why are you charging people so much of money? Don't you feel bad that people are dying and you're charging people? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, medicine is a noble pursuit, right? But doctors are humans too. You know, doctors have dreams, have aspirations, and doctors have families to support, you know. And you must understand that doctors, they do sacrifice a lot before they can reach the pay scale of the 100,000 to 600,000. So I'll give you an example. I have a friend who is an accountant. Now, she started working at the age of 21. Okay, I started working at the age of 24. So by the time I started working and earning my monthly paycheck, she was already 3 years in the business. So she was already out earning me maybe 2 times, right? And as the years progressed, we're still earning the government salary, which is not high. But someone in the private sector, like my friend in accountancy, would have made so much more. So in a way, when doctors go into private practice and they earn that 6 figures, it is just catching up. It's just catching up to what they could have earned if they didn't do medicine and did something else instead. Right? So people need to understand that doctors who earn that much, they don't earn throughout their whole career. They earn it when they are 45, when they're 50, because you need to be that experienced as a specialist to be able to command that kind of salary. As a former doctor, I'm always biased towards doctors earning more, because like if you insist on doctors in Malaysia or not being paid well and it's a noble pursuit, don't charge people that high, whatever nonsense, you may be entitled to that opinion, but if you persist with that dogma, you are going to lose your doctors to other countries which pay more. And that has been happening since time immemorial. We have been bleeding doctors to Singapore, Australia, UK, Canada, America, because they are being paid more, you know.
That's right.
At the end of the day, it's bread and butter issues for the doctors themselves. If they can support their families, give their children better education, yeah, they're going to take it because they have families to feed too. So I think it is all for the better if doctors are paid better, but at the same time, protect the patient's interest in making sure that costs of healthcare are not prohibitive. You know, that could be via insurance or even government intervention, like say, like in how they do it in Singapore with their Medicare or MediSave, and in the UK with their NHS. You know, it's not; these are not perfect systems, but I think patients' interest should be safeguarded also.
Right.
And like I said, it takes a very mature, proactive government to find the balance between keeping doctors happy, but also making sure patients' access to healthcare is not curtailed.
I think what you say is very true, right? Because recently I also did another episode with another lady. She's in a she founded a social company called Picha Eats, right? Yeah, not sure if you heard of it. So what they do is that they help refugee families to cook from home, and then they help them market those food, as a catering business, right? So they get to make a living. I start to realize that there's this pattern when it comes to a few different kind of careers that we deem it as a noble pursuit.
Okay.
Like healthcare.
Okay.
And then even politics, I would say.
Okay.
Right? And then social work.
Okay.
We kind of have this idea that these people shouldn't make money. And they shouldn't make a lot of money. And it's almost sinful that they're making money off this noble pursuit. Right? And I would admit that last time when I was younger, I used to think the same way to a certain extent. But after a while, right, I started to realize one thing that is a very flawed with this way of thinking. While these people are pursuing a noble pursuit and we cap them, then you are saying that you shouldn't be doing good. Because if you're going to do good, you have a cap. So, but we are okay with someone doing illegal business and they're going to earn as much money as they want. And then we will never say that, hey, you know, you shouldn't be earning so much, you know. In fact, what we will say is that, oh, see, the guy earns so much because he do illegal business. Like, you get what I mean, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, there's this very weird way of us looking at things.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about this?
Well, yeah, I understand where you're coming from, you know, but I think, you know, in Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew said that our politicians and those in elected positions, especially in the cabinet, should be paid well.
That's right.
So that when you're paid well, you're not, number one, because you are titans of your own industry, you come and serve the cabinet. It makes sense because they have to give up their CEO positions, whatever, to serve in the cabinet. But also, like, if you're paid well, then you're not easily susceptible to corruption. You know, so same thing for doctors, you know, like if you don't pay them well, then they'll be easily influenced to go into private practice, for example, where you may not see that many patients and therefore not of much help to the community who needs you. And also that they may not be swayed to go to other countries and work because other countries will pay a lot more for your expertise, right? And it's a sad thing because the most expensive part about training a specialist is the training itself. Let's say a Malaysian-born specialist. Malaysia spends X amount to train this person to become a specialist, and then this person ups and leaves to another country. So that other country gets a specialist without having invested in the training of this person.
That's right.
So it's a double net gain for the country, you know, and a double net loss for Malaysia. This brain drain is going to continue unless something drastic happens. And we are seeing the effects of it now, like not enough specialists and consultants are left to train the new batch of doctors. So and also the public mindset must change lah. The reality is that a lot of doctors have families to feed too.
Yeah, this reminds of one thing that my friend mentioned to me, right? So my friend is a doctor right now in Australia as well. Yeah, so he refused to come back to Malaysia because he felt that the training spots are too little. I mean, Australia is not too different. The training spots are limited as well. But he just prefers the life there and stuff. So I was joking with him, saying that, hey, your doctor earn a lot later. Then he will always tell me this one thing. He say, bro, you know doctors, throughout the first 15 years of our life, he say, I got no life one, you know, he say. Every day I'm just studying and studying and studying and studying and studying.
Yes.
You'll be lucky that I even can get a girlfriend.
Yes.
So by 15 years later, I need to get a Porsche so that I can get my girlfriend, okay? To compensate.
Yes.
I was like, hey, that's a very, very fair point.
Fair point.
Fair point.
You gotta get
Fair point, right? Yeah.
gotta get the chicks with the Porsche.
When I'm using doctor as the name, it's just simply doctor, but I also apply it to all the healthcare staff, including nurses, because those are people who are also like get drained out, right?
Oh, yes. The technicians, the medical assistants, and the nurses. Yeah, they are. When I say doctor, I mean all these people.
Yeah,
They're
all these
all
healthcare
in the same
professionals,
boat,
right?
Same boat. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, one thing I have to say is this, right? One of the things that changed my mind was the other day as I was talking to, as I talked to more and more doctors, and I was talking to Dr. James as well. He was telling me about how they run a KKM, right? And I was thinking to myself, right? Like when he said that being a doctor, at the moment you can handle a whole clinic on your own, you are actually handling a lot of lives.
Yep.
It's life and death. People come, if you make a wrong decision, the guy can die.
Yep.
Right? And then a bunch of people lose their father, you know, that kind of a ripple effect and all. And I was thinking to myself, right? Actually, sometimes we kind of underappreciate a doctor's responsibility and the mental burden that they're facing. And even nurses and so on, I say. But I was just thinking to myself, right? Let's say if you look at CEO of a company being paid 50,000 a month, we celebrate them as heroes. We celebrate them as heroes. Wow, great guy, you know, founded a company, you know, wow, you're so good. You have 50 people under employment, celebration, you know, go up times, you know, everything, all right? Yeah. If a doctor stand up and say, I earn 600,000 a month, oh, bloody hell. Yeah. You noble pursuit, you do like that. But I'm thinking to myself, right? That guy, every cut he make, can kill a family, kill a person. Yeah. Every decision is made is life and death. Yeah. For me, if I make a wrong move in my company, the most is these 20 people look for a new job. But for them, there's no such thing as looking for a new job. It is
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
So suddenly when I applied that same thought, right? How much do you think this is worth getting paid for,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah,
Suddenly, immediately in my mind, right? I think 600,000 is underpaid. Lah.
yeah. It's the classic, when the story of the guy who hired a plumber to sort out his plumbing problem at home. Then the plumber comes, he just knocks a few times, and then he charges like $100. And he goes, "How come you charge so much? You just knock a few times." And he goes, $1 for the knock, $99 to know where to knock.
That's right.
Right? You're paying for the experience of the doctor, And what you say is true, because like I always feel that when you pay a professional, right, you're not just paying the professional to perform the job on the surface. For example, let's say you hire a person to be an MC, right, and you pay him his fee, which is let's say 10,000 ringgit, or very high, very expensive. But you're also, the extra money is also to pay the professional in case things fuck up. Right? You're not paying him just to do the job on the surface. You're paying in case something happens in the event. This is a professional who knows how to save your ass and save your event. Same thing with the doctor, right? You can pay peanuts, you get monkeys, or you can pay a real professional to do the job. And if there's an emergency during the op, he has the experience to know how to save the patient and save the op.
But here's the one part, right? I also have to ask this question, which is that how do we find the balance, right? Yeah, well, there's a big part of it in terms of money and the noble pursuit. It has to do with the system around us. Like, for example, insurance, what's the pricing structure, whatever not, right? But as a person, how do you find the balance between these two things, right? Yeah. And for you right now, your noble pursuit is in comedy, making people laugh, healing of the heart, right? But how do you balance between like this noble pursuit and making money of it, right? Where is enough?
Okay, for example, when I perform for corporate events in Malaysia, very simple. I know how to balance my price, because let's say someone like Douglas Lim charges X. I charge less than that, because I'm not as good as him, nor am I as famous as him, right? So that's where I price myself, So like if people say I'm too expensive, then that's okay. They don't have to get me, because I don't wanna perform at your event with you thinking I'm overpriced, because that also sets the expectation differently, and then they might expect me to do miracles that I'm not qualified to do miracles, And for me, as long as I'm making enough money, comfortable enough to like go for holidays, save up for my daughter's education in the future, I think that's enough, And I'm not the kind of guy who buys fancy cars or flashy cars, flashy watches, shoes. I don't spend a lot on myself. Come back for the patients, right? I would say a good balance is how Australia does it, because Australia has a great universal healthcare system, and at the same time they pay the doctors really well. So a lot of doctors are happy in Australia, and that comes with the citizens paying quite a high income tax bracket, but the government is efficient in channeling those taxes back into services and benefits for the citizens. So that's why that system makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, even if you're a doctor there, you earn a lot, you still get tax back, right?
Yeah, you get.
So it's kind of like
I think doctors pay about, if you earn about more than 300 or 400,000 Aussie dollars a year, you get taxed like up to like the 45% bracket or something like that.
Wow.
But it's tiered, but it's reasonable, because then but because so many doctors want to work there, they work 4 days a week. There's more work-life balance. Doctors are happier there.
Wow.
A lot of doctors come from the UK and even from the rest of Southeast Asia to work in Australia, because it's so much, they're much happier there. So it makes sense, So and it's universal healthcare, so the citizens can access healthcare without having to pay so much. But there's also private insurance, so it's quite a good ecosystem as compared to, say, Malaysia's system.
Thank you very much for your insights. Now, we're going to take a short break, and after we come back, we're going to talk about the subject of money itself. Welcome back to the second part of this episode, and right now we're going to dive into the topic about money.
Yeah, baby.
So, Jason, How was your experience like with money as you grow up? Is there any special incident as you grow up, early days experience that shaped your view towards money?
As a child growing up, my parents were, I would say middle class. I would say almost lower middle class, because like we had one car, we stayed in a terrace house, single story. So, and my friends, usually my group of friends, they were all better off than I was. I didn't go for holidays overseas, and I didn't have that much privilege lah. So that's why in school I studied hard and worked hard because I saw education as a way out of this social class, like, even as a kid. And I remember when I was 17, when I told my parents that I want to study overseas, my parents were, quite crestfallen because they couldn't afford education overseas, and I wanted to study medicine, and that's expensive also. So luckily I got a JPA scholarship to study medicine overseas. Again, I had to work hard for that, and then I believe my first real experience with money was when I was working part-time at a pub in Dublin, and I was not only earning the minimum wage of 7.65 euros an hour, but I was also getting tips. Like, they were very generous with the tips. Like, one serving I can make 2 euros. And then with earning all this money, I realized, oh my God, I have a chance to save, travel overseas, because it's my first job. And that's when I realized that I want to save up enough money so that I can be financially free and independent lah. Because I was earning quite a lot, as a student.
Yep.
And then I could see that, the pub owner, the owner earns so much because, like, every night when they count the till, like one night, one till is like 5,000 euros one night, and there are 4 tills.
Wow.
And then shortly after that, when I work as a doctor, I would do like locum spots, like where locum means like you as a doctor you work in a government clinic. No, not government clinic, private clinic. And I was sitting there and I was earning like what, 10, I can't remember, 10 ringgit an hour.
10 ringgit an hour?
I can't remember. I can't remember. No, sorry. 80 ringgit to 100 ringgit an hour. I can't remember.
Okay.
I can't remember what it was. This was almost 15 years ago, 10 years ago. But then we could see how much we are charging the patient each consultation.
Right.
The clinic charges. And like one night it's like 10,000 ringgit. One night, one room. It's a lot of money for the private clinic to earn. So that's when I realized that, there's a lot of money to be earned in this world lah, And the reason why I work hard and earn as much as I can is because I want to give my daughter what I didn't have when I was a kid. Which is like the secure foundation for education. Like, if she wants whatever she wants to study, I want to be able to say I have enough to let you pursue your dreams, or at least that one time lah for your education lah. So that's the motivation I have for making money. And ever since I started doing comedy, as I mentioned to you before, like now we're entering a golden age for live events. So the amount of money you can make as a touring comic, selling your own tickets, is significant. So I'm glad that has happened in my career, and I hope it continues. Yeah.
Now, then I want to ask you this thing, right? Because I've met a lot of artists along the way, a lot of entertainers, right? And there are those artists. They may be very good at their art, but they are not very money savvy. But you are one of those that definitely practical enough. For me, you are a combination of a good businessman and comedian all in one, right? If you think about it, like Taylor Swift, she didn't got very rich just because her music is good. She's also a very savvy businesswoman.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And that's something that I see in you, right? And along the way, when you've met so many people in your circle as well, I bet you have met those that I've talked about earlier.
Okay, that
right?
mean the artist.
Yeah, the artist, right? Like they can be quite good, but they just can't find the sweet spot when it comes to the money making part of this, right? So what was it about you that tuned you into it? Because this part is something that I find that it's a little bit hard to teach people, right? It's also a little bit hard to kind of learn. It almost feels sometimes kind of like inbuilt in the person to just learn how to make money, right? So what was so different about you, or what do you see so different about them in that sense?
I think firstly it's the inbuilt DNA, You know, for some reason, I think because us Chinese culturally, we are surrounded by a lot of our relatives and friends who are business savvy. You know, you definitely have a few uncles and aunties who do their own business and they make money that way. You know, and we also we have this habit of saving up for our future. So that's, don't mean to be racist, but that's more ingrained in our Chinese culture as compared to other races. So that's one. That's one of the benefits. Number two, I was lucky because when I first started doing stand-up comedy, I was noticed by Douglas Lim, who then took me on tour with him as part of the Malaysian Association of Chinese Comedians. And that gave me, very early in my career, a first-hand look at how the business of comedy is run. We were selling tickets in Kuala Lumpur, Penang, Johor. I could see how the business is run, how tickets are sold, the marketing involved, the press involved. And, you know, to his credit, Douglas also paid us fairly and generously. So I was lucky to have a mentor who treated us well. So from there, I learned that, okay, the real bread and butter is selling your tickets. Selling tickets to people who want to buy and watch you. And that has only been reinforced over the years because we are reaching a point in our time where, you know, a comedian doesn't have to be a superstar to tour around the world. Nowadays, the appetite for comedy is so much that someone who doesn't appear on TV or has not made any movies, has only done stand-up, can, on his or her own fame and power, marketing power, tour around the world just by being a stand-up comedian. And I'm lucky because I've been able to tour Southeast Asia, America, London, just by being Jason Leong, the stand-up comedian.
Right.
Yeah. So being online and putting your clips online, I think that also helps, you know, because like people online will know, this guy does comedy. And other comics in Malaysia and around Southeast Asia, they may not do it as often, post enough clips of themselves, because I've seen comics from, let's say, Australia. For example, this woman, Jenny Tien. She does a lot of TikTok content, a lot of Instagram content, and she just blew up. Now she's selling tickets on her own volition, on her own fame, you know. I know this comedian in America called Zarna. Zarna is a comic from India. She started when she was 42. She has 3 kids, and she just did a lot of content on Instagram, and now she's blowing up. She's touring with Amy Poehler and Tina Fey, and appearing on Jimmy Kimmel. So it's all based on online presence.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. So today the barrier of entry is much more lower in that sense, right?
Yes,
Because
yes.
of digital, right?
Yes.
So it's all about the ability to self-market and
Yes.
stuff like that.
Nowadays with the algorithm, I think because the barrier is so low and the algorithm is such that it's become a volume business where some comics, they just post up clips every other day and they get their attention. You know, the algorithm rewards consistency. So that is something I myself am beginning to learn, because I don't post consistently now that I tour a lot more. But to be able to tour a lot more, I have to post enough to sustain the online presence. Something that you have done very well, because you post constantly a lot. So it's something I need to learn also, because the algorithm is changing. You know, it keeps evolving.
Yeah, it's an all changing thing. Yeah, it's a moving
new,
goalpost lah.
the new religion.
The new God, right?
Yeah,
the God of Algo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll go. Yeah.
No, on the other hand, right? You went from a doctor to comedian.
Yep.
That definitely wasn't easy, because being a doctor is about, a profession. You get the cert, then after you're paid a fixed amount, then you just follow the crap. But it's one of those, right, that you just follow. Switching from there, becoming a comedian, it's a whole different thing.
Yep.
It's a businessman on your own. You're literally a freelancer. You are yourself. The sky is the limit.
Yep.
And there's no rules to follow to a certain extent.
Yes.
Right? How did you went from this to this, right? There has to be some sort of a switch, right? And there has to be some sort of a challenge, right? So what was that like for you?
So when I made the switch, for 2 years, I was working as a doctor full time and also doing stand-up comedy on the side. So I work from, let's say, 8 to 5 at a government clinic. Then after 5 p.m., I'll do shows at this venue or that venue. I also created my own monthly show and I hosted that show. So I did both. And then I was also sending out emails to event managers saying, hey, I can do stand-up comedy. I can perform at your private functions. And then I got booked for private functions and corporate events. And once I felt that I could earn more than my government doctor salary consistently, and I saved up enough. That's when I realized, okay, I'm comfortable to switch lah.
Oh.
Yeah. So and then it's a lot of like putting your name out there to get hired. Number one at the comedy clubs, and also as a performer at corporate events lah. The money from corporate events could sustain my career as a stand-up comedian, And I'm lucky in the sense that other kind of artists like actors, singer-songwriters, musicians, they don't have that kind of demand and supply for corporate events. They do perform, but they don't get paid as much, or they don't get booked as regularly because there's just so many musicians. But there's only 6 to 7 stand-up comedians who could perform at corporate events regularly. So I was lucky in that sense lah. And then after a while, my career evolved into a point where I realized, hey, actually, I don't have to do corporate events so much. I rather perform live comedy shows where I get to do the jokes I want to do, and people buy tickets and are willing to buy tickets to come and see me. So last year was the year I consciously said, okay, I want to do fewer corporate comedy gigs. I want to tour as often as I can. So last year my tour took me all of Southeast Asia, and then Vancouver, Toronto, New York, San Francisco, and London, and all the way down to Indonesia. And that was a very freeing feeling that I don't have to rely on corporate gigs anymore. Now I can tour, sell my tickets, and people would willingly come and see me do my thing. And once I saw that I could make more money from touring than from performing corporate events, that's when I felt very liberated.
I can see your journey is quite a meticulous one. You actually plan your way through, right?
Not really lah. Sometimes things happen, fall into place, then you just take advantage of it lah.
Right. Having said that, right, how do you balance between the risks? Because at every single step, right, from doctor moving to comedian, then comedian who actually does quite a lot of corporate gigs, to moving into selling out your own shows, right? Every step of it, while there's an opportunity, there's also a risk involved. So how do you go through the process? How do you justify those risks that you take? Yeah, is there a framework in your mind, like, okay, I'll only do this if there's this kind of thing?
Okay, so I'm actually quite loose when it comes to doing gigs overseas. For example, like as long as I know that I can sell a certain amount and not lose money, usually that's about half the audience capacity of the venue, or sometimes the promoters at overseas gigs, they give like, okay, there's a guarantee. You are guaranteed X amount, even if you don't sell, but if you sell out the show, you get a bonus. So there's a lot of ways that artists can safeguard themselves when it comes to working with promoters at shows overseas. The touring circuit is so mature that usually you can negotiate for a certain guarantee or safeguard in case things fall apart. So that's one. And then, for example, at certain other shows where I know I don't have to work with promoters, where I can take all the profits for myself, like say Malaysia, because I work in Malaysia so often, I know the market. Or even Singapore, I know the market so well. I've cultivated a fan base there. I know that I don't need anyone else. So I do the shows myself. I produce the shows myself, and the lion's share of the profits I take. So it comes with knowing the territory. So as comedians, when we go and perform in other countries or markets outside of Malaysia, you have to know the lay of the land. You must know like how many people will come to see you based on your own marketing versus marketing from external sources. Then and also like social media numbers. These will become your leveraging, your bargaining chips.
Right.
Because you can leverage and say, hey, I can sell out this many people on my own. What do you bring to the table? Right? So if I can sell out 85% of the audience comes from my own fan base, then I can ask for 85% of the revenue.
Right.
And they'll say, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then they might say yes to the deal. With experience in industry and with the right people advising you, usually that's how you minimize the risk, by having good people advising you. So I'm lucky that when I started doing shows in Australia, my Australian manager Andy Curtin, shout out to Andy, he did a good job curating and growing my career in Australia. I give you an example. Last year we were doing shows regularly at a 150-seater. And then to a certain point where he said, you know what, I think you can sell out another venue, 800 seats. I was like, are you kidding me? He goes, okay, never mind, it's okay. As long as you sell out 300, the ground floor of the venue looks packed. And that's what we can aim for. But I think you can sell 800. I said, okay, never mind. If we sell 300, I'll be happy because it looks good in photos. The day came, we sold out the whole place. 800 seats. Sold out. And I wouldn't have done it without him advising me. As comedians, when we become professional and we start touring around, we get people to advise us and give us proper advice, but we also have other comedians in other markets who can give us advice also. Same as how I will give advice to other comedians coming to Malaysia or Singapore.
Right.
Yeah. So also building goodwill comes a long way, because then if you build up a name where people can trust you, then they are more than willing to listen to what you have to say.
Yeah.
So
Reputation is
reputation,
very important.
exactly. Yeah.
Being a comedian for quite a while now and already made a name for yourself. Most of
I
us
hope
are-
so.
Yeah, like what you always self-proclaim, the most famous person, right? Okay, true famous.
Yeah.
Now, have you made your first million? I calculated a ticket confirmed it Yeah. So when did you first make your first million?
I can't remember, but I think a few years into doing stand-up comedy full-time lah. I became full-time in 2014, right? And I wouldn't say I made my million in that year, but cumulatively, I managed to,
Right. Question is, when you realize that you've already achieved that first million, right? What do you spend on?
Very good question. Nothing. As my friends would know, and you're about to know, I'm not a very, I would say I'm stingy with myself, but I'm generous with my friends and family. So I don't spend a lot on myself. You can see I don't wear fancy watches, I don't wear fancy suits, I don't drive fancy cars. My last upgrade was from my Proton Vira to 2013 Mazda, which I still have today. It's the car I drove to this podcast.
Right.
So yeah, I don't spend much on myself, and I'm lucky because my wife is also of the same mindset. We just save, we save for our children's future. We save for we delayed gratification lah. In fact, I would say that I rather spend money on acquiring skills or creating memories.
Right.
So holidays, yes, I spend. Like I spend on nice hotels, whatever, because you probably won't go to the country again, and it's nice to holiday and create memories. Right? We once went to spend money, go to Tromsø in northern Norway to see the northern lights. Okay, and money cannot buy the experience of seeing the northern lights again.
That's right.
And I'm glad I spent the money. It's not cheap to fly all the way to Norway to see the northern lights.
right.
But I would spend the money again, or like acquiring skills, like spending money to go to jiu-jitsu classes, learning how to grapple and in self-defense. No problem spending. But to buy things, I don't like to buy things. I don't like to buy trinkets or jewelry, and I'm lucky my wife is also like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So over the years, as you accumulate your money, you actually really just don't simply spend all, except on memories, except on skill sets like.
And also investments lah, like invest in whatever, and a lot of my money is invested, but I don't spend on buying things for myself. Although I've learned, correct me if I'm wrong, rich people buy Rolex watches because it holds their value. Am I right or wrong?
That's what everyone say lah, huh? That's what everyone say lah, huh? But I would say that real rich don't buy it to hold value. They buy it for entertainment sake.
They just juggle it in the air.
Just buy lah. Just buy because I like it lah. That's all lah. It's kind of like the same concept as you're willing to drop 500 ringgit on jiu-jitsu classes, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
they earn that much.
Yeah, I think sometimes when we justify too much on one particular spending, like if let's say when we buy any form of item, this is what I personally believe, right? If you like watches, you just buy it.
Of course.
If you can afford, that's all.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to justify the investment value. If you need to justify the investment value, I think it just means that you can't really afford it. So just don't buy. Like the other day I was talking to this guy from Auto Detailer, right? They actually refurbishes Porsches,
Wow.
You see him showing you one car, R32 Nissan Skyline. The guy already spent 5 million. 5 million.
Refurbishing the car.
Refurbishing a car. A Nissan.
Wow.
Right? No. Then you think about it, right?
5 million on one refurbishment or multiple refurbishments?
He just want to redo the whole car to exactly where he wants.
I think
Simple as that.
sometimes we judge people on how they spend money, but however you spend money is the correct way lah. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if you like it brings joy to you. It sparks joy. Marie
Yeah, it
Kondo.
sparks joy. Yeah.
Who are we to say whatever?
Yeah, who are we to say that it's not good, right?
Yeah.
Like for me, I drive an Activa, but I enjoy my morning golf session sometimes, so I spend quite a bit on it.
Golf. Okay.
Yeah, these days I start to play golf in the morning, right?
Again, another rich man spot.
Uh,
Just fellow rich people
doesn't need to be too rich
meeting
lah,
up together to make more money. Jiu-jitsu is the poor man's spot.
Nonsense.
Only poor people go there and
Jiu-jitsu
grapple
is
and
expensive,
sweaty,
man.
and then no one makes any deals, and that's why you still no watches. You see no watches. Yeah,
No.
but yeah, I don't buy trinkets for myself, and that's
Right.
I think it's a good mindset to have, but it's not a mindset I actively created. It's just like I've never
just
from
happened
the
to be
very
like
get go.
that.
I never bought. I can't bring myself to buy expensive items. For example, recently, because I've been flying a lot, so I want to buy headphones. So I go and see the noise cancelling headphones. Oh, 600. Okay lah, a bit more. I think I can buy. Then after that, it's a lot of money, Then I go down search for lower price. I end up buying a headphones which is $200 because I cannot bear to spend $600. Although my budget was $500, I saved $300 and I'm happy with the headphones.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of mindset I have lah.
Right, I
Yeah.
see. Yeah, ultimately it's about what makes you happy, right, in life. Now,
$200.
but the thing
Headphones.
here is this, right? Along the way, as you meet many people, I believe you have met many rich people as well, and some of them would have go like, "Hey, Jason, upgrade a bit, live a little." How do you deal with that? Or you're just living in your own separate world, right? Like, okay, it just doesn't affect me somehow.
Yeah, I don't know. Yes, some people have said live a little, but I never had the need, nor will I ever understand some people's need to show off how much money they have. You get what I mean? Like, oh, I've earned this much, so I must buy this car to show that I'm in this status. I can never understand that mentality. I have this they call it scarcity mindset. Save money, things are scarce, so just save up money for the future. Save for the future, and like I said, the environment helps. So I'm surrounded, like my wife, she is also a saver. She doesn't spend on money to show off whatever. So my ego doesn't need to be fed that way lah.
So the other day I was reading about this particular article about parenting stress. Right? It's becoming a pandemic according to some articles, right? And they were saying that because a lot of parents compare themselves with other people. So apparently it's quite normal that these days parents will say, I want to send my kids to the best school. And they go into debt doing that. They were like, hey, my son's school friend can afford a trip to go Switzerland. Maybe we should do that as well to give our kid that experience. So there's a lot of money as a parent that spend in a noble fashion, but may not be that wise, right? What are your thoughts on this, being a parent yourself?
Okay, so my wife and daughter are now in Perth. And the environment there doesn't have this whole like, oh, I got to send my kids to this particular school and learn this particular thing and go on this particular trip, I think for better or worse, the Australians, they don't view their kids as a social status or social status symbol kind of asset. Say in Malaysia, like, oh, my kid can go to this school. It's like showing off that, hey, I can afford to send my kids to this particular school. In Australia, they don't have that. Australia, they tend to have a more holistic approach to a kid's education. For me, I don't feel there's an arms race to send their kids to as many activities after school or as many tuition classes, or because in Australia, the best thing about it is they let their kids be kids. They emphasize on the need to let their kids play and enjoy their childhood. So I'm glad that my daughter is growing up in that kind of environment. If we want to send our daughter to a particular class, it's because we want to send her, not because, oh, the coolest kids are doing it, so we have to do it. I don't subscribe to that lah. So like for example, my daughter goes for jiu-jitsu classes and swimming classes in Perth, Australia, and it's only because swimming is very important and jiu-jitsu is very important. That's it. I think it's not healthy to raise your child in competition with other parents. Okay, as a parent, I never feel like, I've done everything I can for my daughter. No, I always feel like I've something more I should have done.
Could have done better.
Should have spent more time with her because I'm touring all the time. So I should have spent more time with her. I should be more patient with her. I should have given her this or that. And that is already that guilt without me comparing myself to other parents. So why add on to the stress? You know, all your children are going to be useless anyway. So what? You know what I mean? They're just going to grow up to be, you know, irritating people with their own skibidi Gen Alpha nonsense. So just relax, bro. Just relax.
I guess in Malaysia, there's also another one thing that some people will probably fight back on that and say that, hey, but you're in Australia, Malaysia education system, you know, different a bit, you know. If only I can send my kid to private school, then at least I can give them the age, because as a parent, that's my responsibility. Then what's the thought about that?
Like I said, I preface it by saying I'm lucky that I mean my daughter and kid in Australia, but I totally understand parents here who send their kids to private school because the local government education system is just not on par lah. It's no longer to send them because they want the age. They're sending them because they have to. Yeah, we feel like we have to.
I'm still trying not to accept that.
How many kids do you have?
Hard. I have 2.
How old are they?
6 and 3.
6 and 3. So still ways off lah.
Yeah,
but
still ways off.
So, but you don't want to send them to private school.
I hope I don't need to.
Right.
Yeah. So I can tell you my evolution of parenting and money when it comes to this area.
Yeah.
Education wise, is that when I first started, I thought to myself that I will only send my kid to public school because that's what I went through, and I turned out as I would say, a fine human being, not too bad, right? Yeah, okay, right.
Same here.
No, I always wonder, why should I send my kid to private school, right? What's so good about it? Definitely. Then after that, when I send them to what we call kindergarten, right? Yeah, kindergarten, or daycare nursery. I can't remember what do we call it already today. Just preschool as long. Then they started showing me some of the syllabus, you know. Then I was like, oh my god, the syllabus is good, but I'm not sure whether the teacher can handle or not. Because imagine at 5 years old, the teacher is supposed to teach your kid about if your father owns a business and he wants to raise 20% in equity, how much money should he raise?
What?
And I'm thinking to myself, your English haven't even teach you the word equity yet.
Wow.
Right? You got what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the math teacher is supposed to explain what's equity, what's business, and all these kind of things.
5 years old.
Yeah, not 5 lah. At a standard five, right?
Oh, standard five.
Standard 6, right? Maybe the particular school, Chinese school, is a bit more gung ho, so they want to make it more changgeh, right?
Wow.
But when I share with people, they say, "Hey, yeah, that's the syllabus, right?" I have no problem with that syllabus. Singapore also has similar kind of syllabus, maybe even more advanced, right? But the issue is that it's well known in Malaysia that not all our teachers are that well trained.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
So, and that gives me these creeps, right?
Yes.
That, now it's not about my kid being a lazy boy, he doesn't want to study, you know. Then, if that's the case, as a parent, my responsibility is to provide him with a certain amount of thing, right? I mean, I'm okay if I send you to a proper school. You fail, your problem lah.
Yes.
Nothing to do with me, you know.
Correct.
I'm not gonna burn my retirement fund for you. So that's how I shift. And right now I'm in this position where I'm thinking, so should I send my kid to private school, right? So then there's this struggle.
Recently, I was doing like something for franchise of a private school, and I happened to walk around the campus, and then the guy was showing me, oh, here is where we teach them robotics, and here's where they learn how to do coding, and it's primary school. So I'm thinking, as time goes by, you know, the syllabus is becoming more complex. Like
that's right.
Now there's coding and robotics, and I'm sure there's going to be AI soon.
Yep.
So now, if the local public schools don't have that in their syllabus, would that be a concern to you? Because then you are going to realize that while your child grows up in the public school system, not having learned how to code and do AI and robotics, whatever, he or she will come out into the workforce surrounded by people who know how to code and do robotics and AI.
That's right.
Wouldn't that be a disadvantage where then you go, oh no?
That's right.
Because the gap is so wide now.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So suddenly that became a responsibility to spend more money already, right? So I think that's a one part that I believe many audience out there who are parents are also a little bit concerned, especially if you're in Malaysia.
Our generation, we are part of the sandwich generation. The sandwich meaning we have to save a lot for our children's education, but as our parents age, we also have to take care of their well-being when they get older. But having said that, right, and this is where I feel like we should save even more for our children, is because by the time our children reach the workforce, or say 18 to 21 years old, the world then will be much different. Property will become so much more expensive in the future. Land will be so much more scarcer in the future. And I had this conversation with my wife the other day, and I said that if we want to prepare our daughter for success, it's not just enough to save for her education, but there needs to be another chunk of money for her to do things like own property or invest or whatever that will elevate her to the next orbit. Because if just education alone is not enough, because everyone else
That's right.
would have saved up for their child's education. But because next time is so much more harder for young people, she needs another chunk of money to push up to the next level. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I don't know about you, but I can't imagine what it's like to be a young person in the workforce today. Because like I said, like the wages have not changed for doctors since 2009. Okay? But house prices have doubled, tripled. Inflation has don't know how many times more. Everyone must have an iPhone or a smartphone or a laptop or a tablet to even work and function normally as a working adult. So much more expenses. It's like 2 or 3 times tougher for them now than it was for me when I started working. So I empathize with the young generation a lot.
For the younger generation, they have their difficulty, which is they have so much more things that they need to survive. During our days, we don't even need a phone, right? Yeah, I mean, we're 80s kids, right? So
Yeah.
like, we don't even need a phone.
I work as a houseman with the
Today no, man. Today no.
Nokia, whatever.
Today Netflix is like basic.
Basic.
Netflix is basic. Spotify is basic.
That's like already $60. Total $80. 80
That's
ringgit
right.
a month.
That's right. Yeah.
You know?
During our days, it was just
MP3 download illegal.
yes, or either you just have a radio settle. Settle. You have to memorize a song name, so that you wait for a song play.
You
You
record.
listen
Yeah.
attentively.
Yeah.
But to a certain extent, right? As well, I have to say that we're living in this very odd environment where people these days get to acquire things with lesser effort needed, while it's harder to acquire. What do I mean by that, right? As long as you got the fastest phone, you can surf the internet at the fastest speed,
Okay.
right? Then you get the thing already done.
Okay.
Right? Now, and to create a fastest phone is not in your ability. You just have to buy. As long as
Yes.
you got money, you can buy,
Yeah.
right? But during our days, to find out about information, you just need $1 buy a newspaper, and it's about who's being more attentive towards the words that's written there. So it was much more about a slightly level playing field in that sense, right? Where it's all about we are competing with how hard are you willing to work.
Right.
But today it's a little bit different in that sense.
So life is now like a video game where you can with microtransactions.
Yes, you start off with better avatar, right? Like
So
for example,
if you have more money, you get more.
that's right.
advantage.
Like your parents will let's say you're from a richer family. It's not uncommon today that you'll meet a few of your friends who simply are not the smartest of the bunch, but are in the best network.
Of
So
course.
they F up a couple of times,
Yeah.
but they still have the money.
Yes.
And they still have the great network.
Yeah.
And the third time they make it, they become a billionaire, right?
Yeah.
And you there who have no network, no nothing,
Yeah.
you got it right 5 times. You're still not a millionaire. Right?
yeah. And then these people will form companies, and then they'll say, follow your dreams, and then
That's right.
hashtag fail forward. And then they're just burning
Yes.
the father's money.
Yes,
And then
yeah.
people like us like, oh yeah, we should follow our dreams.
That's right. So I think that's the irony of today, right? That's the irony of today, right? Because it's such a big gap now suddenly.
I
The
see.
gap is so huge.
It's-
Last time also got, but
Yes.
it's reserved to that few families lah.
Yeah.
That Lim family lah, whatever family. And today it's like
Yeah.
the gap is
Yes.
very apparent.
Yeah.
That middle is missing, you know.
Yeah. The gap is widening for sure. I feel lucky that we have achieved a certain level of success before all this, for lack of better word, this fuckery has been happening for the young people these days. Because I don't know how I would survive if I was suddenly 21 years old in today's time. Like if I was 21 years old in the year 2024, I don't know how I would survive or more or less pursue this dream of doing stand-up comedy. It's scary to me.
One thing that changed the way I looked at a lot of things, right, is when I had my first kid, then my business partner actually told me this one thing, that when his daughter did not feed on any milk for 3 days, they were so worried they went and see the doctor. The doctor said, don't worry, babies are very resilient. even if they don't feed on milk for 3 days, they won't die. Yes,
Okay.
it's not good, but they won't die.
Okay.
They will learn their way to survive, and
Wow.
eventually you have to figure it out, right? Yeah, and that just taught me one thing, right? I think resilience is built within our genes
Yeah.
to actually survive.
Yeah.
So we'll just eventually find a way
Yeah.
to actually go through it.
Yeah,
That's magic of a human being, right? In
Yeah,
that
yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Adaptability.
Yeah, the adaptability.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
then, as a parent, so I'm starting to develop this philosophy now as a parent, because I'm trying to wonder, like, how much should I give? How much should I, take care of them? Because I was just discussing with my wife, right? The other day we were thinking about going for a holiday, and I was saying that today actually we are more well-to-do than last time. When I look at buying the ticket, 6,000 to 12,000 ringgit, to buy that ticket, right? I'm more. Last time I got no money, I'll just buy, Now, I feel the pain lah when I buy, right? Then me and my wife looking at each other, we're saying that, yeah, probably it's because of the kids, right? We're thinking about like
Yes.
the education,
Yes,
everything,
yes,
or
yes, yes,
this
yes.
this 10K could have grown to another 100K, then
yes.
that kind of stuff,
Yeah,
right? And but how do you balance between life, right? How do we actually do that? And
Yeah.
and part of my philosophy is that, which is a very Asian thing, I need to let my kids suffer a bit.
Yeah, recently I remember I saw an article or saw a video where this guy interviewed his friends who are very successful, and then he asked them, what did you go through to become so successful? For example, like some of them will say, oh, I had to sleep in the kitchen of a restaurant for a few months because I was working as a waiter, and then that developed that resilience to become successful, right? So similar stories among all his successful friends. Then he asked them, would you put your kids through the tough times you experienced that made you a success? And all of them said no, because they can't bring themselves to let their kids suffer. But that suffering made them the resilient person they are, that became multimillionaires.
That's right.
So that's the paradox, right? Like, we don't want our kids to suffer, but that suffering made us successful.
That's right.
So like what you say, like but I don't know how you will let your kids suffer, because I myself, I don't know how I will make my kids suffer. Like I would like to think that working 36 hours in a hospital made me resilient, but I would not wish that on my worst enemy, let alone my own daughter. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's a paradox,
Right.
Yeah,
that's how you think about it, right? To a certain extent, like we look back at our experience where we saw our friend going overseas and we couldn't go, and we felt sad within our hearts, right? And then like your friends get to go, like do certain things, and you go like, yeah, and then you think to yourself, right? You don't want your kid to go through that, but that was what made you who you are.
Yeah. I spoke to a friend in America. He's former Malaysian. I won't say his name. Very successful. He sold his startup for a lot of money, and he was saying that so his daughter is like 21, 22, and he lives in New Jersey. Now his daughter is working in Manhattan, New York, which is like 40 minutes by car from New Jersey. Now this guy has also a condominium in Manhattan, which is expensive lah.
Yep.
And the girl goes, I want to stay in an apartment. The father goes, hey, but it's very expensive rent, you can afford me? I said, no lah, I'm just working ma, I'm your daughter, let me stay lah. I said, no. You want to stay? You stay in Jersey. Right? So you can commute back and forth 40 minutes every day. No lah, I want to stay in Manhattan. Okay, then you find your own apartment lah. I'm not gonna pay for your apartment. I'm not gonna let you stay in our Manhattan condo for free. So she ended up staying with him in Jersey, but every day 40-minute commute lah.
Wow.
And we're talking about a guy who's very, 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 very rich. The fact that he could convince, or rather stick to his discipline and say, you find a job in Manhattan, you work in Manhattan, but you cannot stay in our condo, or nor will I help you with your rent. That is admirable to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's
very,
very hard.
And
very hard.
And he's not spoiling his daughter.
Yeah,
That's
tough.
hard to do, no?
It's hard.
But he did it.
It's hard.
So
yeah.
kudos to him. Yeah.
Yeah. So recently I was talking to a few guys who are very, very well to do, and there is one pattern, right? Quite a number of them. Definitely is not scientific, no research methodology or whatever not. So just qualify that first, huh? Yeah. Many of them actually went to boarding school, and they said this one thing, right?
Wait, your friends were successful?
Yes. So they said this one thing, right? Before they went to boarding school, they realized that, for them, money just solves everything. They just go home, parents give everything. And when they go boarding school, the fat guy who sleeps next to your bed is probably as rich as you, and he's not gonna give a damn shit about what you think about stuff lah. So now it's not about money. You need to find your way to actually get around things. Either you learn to deal with people, you just have to figure out your way. Right?
Yeah.
And that is what made them resourceful as a human being and built certain sort of foundation.
At what age did you go boarding school? Though?
For his case was 13 years old. Now, let's put it this way. There are also a lot of people who didn't turn out to be fine human beings who went to boarding school as well.
And vice versa. People who didn't go boarding school become successful.
That's right. But I guess it's that whole idea about being a parent to build that resilience in them, right? To build that ability to be resourceful. Like for example, right, one of the practice, I know I wouldn't be able to like suddenly just say I discipline myself and don't spoil my kid, right? We have to kind of like take things step by step. As a parent also, we need to train that discipline to put them through suffering. So one of the things that me and my wife commit to is that when my kids cry, we don't bother. Just let them cry. So like my son is at 3 years old right now. My second kid is at 3 years old right now. And he has this one thing. Whenever he steps into a restaurant, he'll say that I don't want this restaurant. I will go somewhere else. And then he'll start shouting. So what I'll do is that I'll bring him out to the restaurant. I'll say, you use your indoor voice. If not, you go outside. Right? Don't wait outside. So I'll bring him outside. And then I'll just make sure that whenever he shout, I bring him outside. No matter how he cry, I bring him outside. And honestly, I hate it because I can't eat my meal. I'm so annoyed. I'm so hungry. I want to eat. But I'm just going to make sure that I put him outside until he settles that emotion himself. Like some people, but different articles, right? Some will tell me that, you are not building his confidence because he realized that no matter how he cries, he can't get what he wants, so you are crushing his confidence. All so scientific. So then I developed my own science.
Yeah.
Out of 5 times, 2 times I'm gonna crush. 2 times I'm gonna let him get what he wants. 3 times I'm gonna crush his confidence. You get what I mean?
Yeah. You average it out.
Yeah, average it out.
Another thing that made me resourceful is that when I was in secondary school, I also joined a lot of at clubs and associations. I was in Scouts, and then I was also in the Interact Club, and I also represented my school in handball. So I think these things build that mindset of resilience. So in handball, it's a team sport. We represented our school. I was very happy and proud. And then some matches we won because, handball, you need teamwork. Some matches we lost. How to deal with loss, how to deal with failures. That's very important. In Scouts, we go camping out in the wilderness, build our own, pitch our own tents, cook our own meals, build our own structures and working as a team. That's also very important, going through tough times together.
Yep.
And then in the Interact Club, again, socializing, how to, we were in meetings where we had to organize events with other schools involved, hiring the venue, learn at a very early age, 16, 17 years old, how to work together with other people, create an event. So these are all skills which I've learned at the age of 16, 17. That's why I'm glad of the schools that we had last time where there was so much freedom, so much things that you could get out of the school system if you participated in the extracurricular activities. If I'm not chairing the meeting, I'm looking at my friend, my peer who is chairing the meeting. That's right. How you do it. That's how that is. So the training was so good. I wonder whether that still happens in today's schools, but I'm sure. I hope it does.
I hope it does.
You're learning you're learning so many soft skills that it will help you when you become a working adult.
That's right.
We're already learning at the age of 16, 17. Yeah. Imagine that.
And to a certain extent, if you actually think about it, during our days, right, there will always be this school bully, there'll be this guy who's more popular, whatnot, and try to exert his authority a bit on you.
Yeah.
Then you need to learn to find a way to actually, siam it or either fight back.
There's always every school has gangsters.
That's right.
You gotta be, you gotta keep the gangsters happy. Please don't beat the shit out of me, but also don't bully me. School is like a microcosm of real life.
That's right. Yeah.
At least the schools that we went.
The schools that we went. And sometimes I wonder if this still exists today.
Sure.
Right? Yeah.
It's
hopefully different form. What you talk about here.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna take a quick break, and later we come back. We're gonna wrap up in our final session.
We have talked so long.
All right, welcome back to our final session of this episode with Dr. Jason Leong. Now, for those of you who do not know, actually I met Jason Leong face to face for the first time is because of Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let me ask you this thing, right? Why did you started jiu-jitsu? Is it because after you do comedy, you scared people will bash you up, so you want to defend yourself?
No, I actually started jiu-jitsu a long time ago in the year 2004, but I only started training regularly after my friend got diagnosed with cancer. That was in 2018. So I trained regularly since 2018, and I got my purple belt in 2022. Training jiu-jitsu is just a way to, be active, and whilst learning a very valid self-defense martial art. It's really good to be able to control someone, and having that knowledge that you can control someone effectively does a lot for your confidence and your self-esteem.
Right.
You are rarely afraid. You always know that you're able to handle yourself. As you get older, jiu-jitsu doesn't have that much impact on your joints or on your head, especially if you do like boxing or Muay Thai, where the sparring involves hits to the head. Whereas in jiu-jitsu, when your joints are in danger or you're about to get choked out, you can tap. And once you tap, then there's no lasting damage. So it's quite a good sport for longevity and as we get older.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you only have one brain, right? So bash it out. But at least ligament, you got 3.
Yeah, exactly.
You can bash out 2.
And also, if you're smart enough, you will never get to the point, because once your knee is in danger of a leg lock or whatever, you just tap.
Right.
Just tap. Put your ego at the door, just tap, and then go again. No damage to your knees.
For me, I find jiu-jitsu being one of the sport that teaches you a lot of life lessons.
Yeah.
Right. Do you feel that way as well as you proceed longer?
I think the number one thing that you learn is that persevere under bad positions. Your opponent has mounted you, trying to choke you out, and you just persevere and find a way to escape. Don't give up. When you start jiu-jitsu, even now for me, you are more often smashed than being the one smashing.
Yeah.
You're more often the one being defeated than the one defeating other people. So it's a lot of setting your ego aside and learning as much as you can. So it's a very humbling martial art.
What got me into jiu-jitsu, it was my wife. Right. So my wife said that, hey, you like all this technical stuff, why not you try jiu-jitsu? Because previously I was running, then the knee wasn't very good, very bad on the knee, a lot of impact.
Okay.
Then I decided, maybe I shouldn't run so much, right? Then she said, maybe you should go and try jiu-jitsu. So I tried the first day. I still remember Patrick McCarray sitting on my face. He was telling me, breathe, brother, breathe. I was like, how to breathe?
He's sitting on your face.
Holding my hand, controlling me, sitting on
yeah.
He was a purple belt at the time, I find it rather addictive, not the part of him sitting on my face.
Yes.
But I felt this idea that hey, actually if you are able to handle yourself under aggression, it's a very important skill.
Yeah, because like all fights start standing, but 99% of the fights end up on the ground. And when they end up on the ground, the dynamics change so much that people don't know that there's a whole art or a skill system in fighting on the ground.
Yep.
You can see all those old videos of people who are martial artists in the standing up fights, for example, like karate, taekwondo, Muay Thai, whatever. But the moment they get on the ground, the famous Gracie saying, the ground is my ocean, I'm a shark, and many people don't even know how to swim. So when they're on the ground, they are lost. They don't know how to move, the weight distribution, their bodies. People who tend to bully others and beat other people on the streets for no reason, these people tend not to be the ones who learn jiu-jitsu or any valid martial art for that reason. Because if you are a real martial artist, you know how dangerous you are as a person, but you are also aware that anyone else on the street could be a trained martial artist and literally wreck you for life.
That's right.
So people who are trained in martial arts won't be the ones trying to beat strangers on the street, because you never know who you are about to try to beat up. You try to mess up with a judo black belt, and he will throw you on the ground and break your head. So that's why I think learning martial arts is very important. That's why I sent my daughter to jiu-jitsu classes. Yeah.
And I also sent Samuel, my eldest one, to jiu-jitsu. And I developed this idea, continuing a little bit from that, and as we enter into the topic about life and stuff like that, right? I think sending our kids to jiu-jitsu is one of the ways to actually train them with resourcefulness. Why do I say that? Is because I think the first thing is when you're being controlled by someone on the ground, right? You just gotta find ways to get out.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's no one there to help them. You can't go in there and say, hey, let me pull you out, right? your daughter just gotta find their way to get out, and there is a way to get out. It's not just brute strength.
Yeah.
They need to know.
What
They
to
will
do.
learn that there's certain skill set in life that they need to equip themselves and be creative about it. Because the truth is, all of us who went to jiu-jitsu, we know one thing, right?
Yeah.
The first 3 classes teaching you about theory, this is how you do a knee cut, and then you go into a roll, right? You die. Because when
Yeah.
the guy twists his hip a little bit, it's a whole different thing altogether.
Yeah. Especially when he puts on 100% resistance. Yeah.
That's right, yeah. So then it teaches your kid one thing is that, like, while theories are correct, you need to...
Application is different.
Application is a whole different thing, right?
Yeah.
And number 2 is that you always lose. And it's okay to lose. And even you get into trouble, it's okay, it's just 5 minutes.
Yeah.
After that, it will end.
Yeah. You learn more from losing.
Yes. And once it ends, it restarts.
Try again.
You have another chance again,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
I feel like it's kind of like a controlled environment to kind of program them to
Yeah.
that certain matters.
Yeah.
And then once they finish that, then you pep talk them a little bit. So it goes into their brain.
Yeah,
So there's something that
Yeah.
that I
And-
feel like it teaches us.
And also, I think for girls, it is so invaluable as self-defense for girls, for women, because like jiu-jitsu teaches you how to handle someone who is stronger and bigger. And for many women, their aggressors will be bigger and stronger.
That's right.
Having that, jiu-jitsu gives you that body awareness of dealing with someone bigger and stronger, so that when it happens, or if it happens, you're not in shock. If you train jiu-jitsu or any valid martial art like Muay Thai or wrestling or judo, you get over the initial shock way faster because you're used to facing someone with that kind of close range aggression. If you never train martial arts, you're never up to your eyeballs with someone who wants to beat you up.
That's right.
But martial arts, you're constantly, this is your range all the time. So when someone is attacking you at this range, you get over the shock very fast. That's why I emphasized jiu-jitsu for my daughter, because the truth is, as a girl, she's going to be attacked one day in some form or the other, and I'd rather she be prepared than unprepared.
One fun fact is that, like, I always think that I'm quite a pussy to a certain extent. Like, I get scared very easily. I get started very easily. Actually, that's true. I get started very easily.
Okay.
Then I'll just stop shock for a while, no? So doing jiu-jitsu was one of the things that I felt that, like, hey, it gets me comfortable with aggression.
Yeah.
Especially guys being guys. And then whether it's a corporate world or anything, sometimes there's a lot of aggression. Right? People will talk to you like, hey, I want to fight. They may not want to fight. I just talk to them, I want to fight. Then I'll get started with why you talk like that, right? But after jiu-jitsu, right, I'm a bit more like, whatever lah.
There's one time I was performing at a wedding, and to cut long story short, there was someone in the wedding just didn't like me. So after I got off stage, he came up to me, shook my hand, but he grabbed onto my hand and said, I want to talk to you outside. So we went outside, and he started like verbally abusing me. Trying to say, I'll smash your glasses and whatever. But he's also tipsy lah, and he's like 50 years old maybe, but he's behaving very aggressively. And I remember when it happened, I was so calm. In fact, I became calmer speaking to this guy who is verbally abusing me and wants to beat me up. And I can tell you, the only reason I was being calm is because I knew at any moment, push come to shove, I will be able to control him. I knew that this guy posed zero threat to me. So he kept verbally abusing. I just kept my distance, whatever. And also, luckily for both of us, not just for me, I was surrounded by my friends lah. Who eventually defused the situation and told him to leave lah.
Yep.
But there was a moment where it's just me and him, and I remember being like, okay, I'm calm enough to just not be able to freak out. Now, if I wasn't trained, I may have like overreacted. Hey, why you come so close to me? I pushed him, then he pushed me, then it escalates out of control.
So this is in a way kind of like an invitation for anyone who's thinking about martial art to join. I encourage you to try out a free trial class, or I'm sure that many gyms provide free trial class.
Yeah.
Just go and hit up any gyms and then ask for one trial class. I know some people find that it's not suitable for them after that, but no, just give it a try first, right?
Yeah, but also like nowadays there are a lot of gyms who have good kids classes. So whenever my daughter is here, I send her to Art of Submission in Hartamas. They have a really good kids class, because they divide the kids class into small kids and big kids, like ages of 4 to 6 and then 7 onwards. So, and they have classes every day. So I've personally watched the kids' classes, they are very well run, and it's good for your kids lah.
And my kids are at Kaboko.
Shout out to Kaboko, shout out to Art of Submission.
Yeah. So anyway, let's go back to the other part of this last part, I would say, of this story, which is about money and life, right? Ultimately, we have discussed at length about parenting, about your views about money and life and all. Yeah. So if someone to come up to you today and ask you this question, say, hey, Jason, what's the meaning of life and money? It seems like the whole thing is an endless pursuit. How would you define financial freedom? Because traditionally it's always defined as you have a lot of passive income, right? You can just live your life. But I think today it's not really the case, you know. And the illusion of being able to sit down there every day and then just money drip down from heaven and then you just live your life enjoying. I don't think it's true lah. I'll just put it that way lah. Huh? Yeah. So how do you find the balance between money and life, in your own opinion?
If I ever reach a certain point where I can still perform comedy, but I don't have to think about how many tickets I sell, whether I break even, whether I make money from this tour. Once I am able to do that and also do creative projects, which I want to do for my own sake rather than being able to turn a profit or monetize, I think that's financial freedom. Because I don't want to ever retire or stop working as a comedian. I want to do this as long as I can. But I hope to reach a certain point where I don't have to do it for the money lah. I think we can achieve that freedom, but the degree of comfort, that is up to you and your own ambitions lah.
If today there's a guy who's 21 years old, just graduated, or maybe 18 years old, just graduated, whatever the age is today, right? What's one good money advice that you're given to the Jason Leong at 21 years old or someone who just graduated?
Okay, when it comes to career, right, and this is something I believe in, right, don't listen to your parents when it comes to getting career advice. Okay, let's say your parents are successful accountants, for example, and you ask them for career advice, they are not expert in careers. They are experts in accountancy. So they can only give you the advice of an accountant, or the accounting business is like this. They are ignorant about other career pathways, right? An accountant doesn't know what it takes to be a doctor. A doctor doesn't know what it takes to be a lawyer. A lawyer doesn't know what it takes to be an accountant, because they are not experts in other people's fields. They are experts in their own fields. If you want to pursue other things, you can't ask your parents. If 20 years ago, a kid were to ask their parents, which is a better career pathway, oil and gas or starting a YouTube channel? 20 years ago, no parent would say YouTube channel. They would say oil and gas. But now oil and gas are retrenching people, and YouTubers are making hell lot of money. So that's another thing where they don't know what the future holds. And the future is so diverse and interesting and dynamic and ever-changing. If you're young, experiment, try, fail, and learn. Don't be stuck to one particular dogma or one particular traditional train of thought. The world is so diverse now. So feel free to experiment. Because I wish I experimented. I wish I took a year off, found myself, like the typical white person, find myself,
Eat, pray, love.
Yeah, made a better informed decision, you know.
Right.
So don't listen to your parents when it comes to careers. By the time you ask them about career advice, their advice would have been outdated already, because your life is the next generation, and
That's
your
right.
next generation, it's very hard to predict what the future holds for the next generation.
Yeah, I think you can ask your parents for some word of wisdom lah.
General
Like
wisdom.
General wisdom lah. Huh? General
Yeah, but
wisdom.
specific
But
careers were very tough.
yeah, for example,
Very tough.
I don't think my mother would have taught me about YouTube stuff lah. Huh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we are,
and I probably can't teach my kid something else that's new next time as
what
well.
we both are doing is alien to our parents.
That's right.
They can never have predicted talking on stage, telling jokes, and doing podcasts will be. They couldn't even predict podcasts.
That's right.
How would they know?
That's right.
It's so different now. Podcasters and YouTubers are making so much money, more than working in the office or as a doctor, lawyer, engineer. So it's different. You can't. Asking your parents for career advice is asking them to do fortune telling, which is not fair to them either.
I think in life, there's one thing that's very important that can help you cut short a lot of failure, which is mentors, right? Having a good mentor in life, I think it teaches you how to, to not F up so much lah. Yeah, at least some sort of a guidance. You're still gonna have up, but some sort of a guidance, right? And I find it as something that a lot of younger generation are a bit lost at. They do not know how to get a mentor, where to find a mentor, or how to even approach it. And thereby, there's a lot of like gurus come on, pay me money, I'll be your mentor, right? In your opinion, if someone were to ask you like, hey, how should I find a mentor, or how do I work with a mentor? What will you tell them?
Okay, so this reminds me of what Neil deGrasse Tyson said when asked about the idea of role models and mentors lah. And he said that if you want to achieve something that no one else has achieved before, then don't subscribe to the idea of role models or mentors, because you want to do something they themselves have not done. You want to do something that the supposed mentor or role models have never done before if you want to achieve something which is truly unique. So don't be so pedantic about having a mentor or a role model. Now, having said that, as a stand-up comedian, of course, I benefited from, let's say, someone like Douglas Lim, who, yes, took me under his wing, showed me the ropes, and didn't expect anything from it, which benefited me a lot. But creative mentorship, when it comes to stand-up comedy, is a bit iffy, because a comedian's voice must be as unique as possible. And if you have one mentor, you may end up sounding like your mentor. Right? Now, that's good if you are doing a tech business and you behave like your mentor who is successful. Great. You're hoping to be as successful as that guy. But in stand-up comedy, or even in any artistic endeavor, if you're too attached to your mentor, you end up creating art like your mentor, which is the opposite of art. The way I go about it is, I don't attach myself to one particular type of comedian or one particular creative mentor. I watch everyone. And like Bruce Lee, I take what works for me. I take what works. Like, let's say a comedian I know has done, I can see him do 10 different moves, but that one move works for me. I take that one move. I see Douglas do all these jokes which lean on singing, dancing, whatever, or parody, lampooning, satire. I like satire. I take that satirical skill that he has. I develop my own. So learn from many different mentors, but don't just attach yourself to one mentor. This is for creative mentors. You must have many different mentors and develop your own voice.
This reminds me kind of like a journey of becoming a grandmaster, right? And it's kind of like the idea that maybe when you first started, you go to Shaolin, right? You learn from a Sifu first. He teaches you some ropes, tell you how does it work. And then you get to a certain maybe pro level, right? Then he say, hey, time to get out of the hill already. Then you go down there and then you start exploring the world. You start picking up what skill works for you, and you develop your own system, your own ways of things. And by the time you get back to a mountain, you are somewhat an on-par grandmaster, but just his age is older.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Jason, for joining us in this show. If there's one final advice for our audience who are watching this, right? What is one life advice that you'll give people?
One life advice. Work hard. Be creative. Don't be afraid of failure. And don't try to impress people that don't necessarily like you. So don't spend on items to impress other people. Spend it for your own sake.
Now that you're back in Malaysia during this period, when's your next show in Malaysia?
Dramatic turn to the camera. I'm doing shows in November. Brand new show, brand new material. I'm doing them in Malacca, JB, Kuching, and Penang in November. So get your tickets at jasonleong.my, or you can follow me on social media at drjasonleong at Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. And I'll see you at my shows.
Oh, you have your own website, huh? jasonleong.my, huh?
Yes. That's where you get your tickets lah.
Maybe it's time to go for .com, so more international.
jasonleong.com is owned by some effing violinist who has not produced a new song. His jasonleong.com page is just a link to SoundCloud. I'm so pissed off that I can't get jasonleong.com. So if you're watching, Jason Leong, musician who has jasonleong.com, please sell me your domain name.
You know where to find him.
At jasonleong.my.
Thank you very much for watching this episode. If you like it, please hit the thumbs up. And also, if you have any questions, any thoughts about this episode, please leave it in the comments. And Jason Leong, you know how to reach him. He's more famous than me, obviously.